Top 10 Metroid Games. Alongside Mario and the Legend of Zelda, Metroid is one of the most recognizable franchises of Nintendo. Although a good game on its own, the main reason why the first Metroid is remembered is because it's the introduction of one of the best heroines in video games, Samus Aran. Metroid has spawned several titles, but not all of them are equally good. That's why we're bringing you the top 10 Metroid games of all time. Number 10, Metroid Other M. Every single Metroid game on this list has its faults, but I would say they all deserve to be played. Sadly, there's always a black sheep. Metroid Other M is a solid game on many fronts with some serious faults that drag the overall experience down. From a technical point of view, it's the best looking Metroid game of all, and the gameplay is top notch. Despite the heavy emphasis on the character Samus, the story takes away a lot of what made her special. That said, it's still a game worth playing. Just because it's the worst of the best doesn't take away from the fact that it belongs on this list. Number 9, Metroid. None of these games could have existed if it wasn't for the original. The game shined for its magnificent exploration and the search for power-ups, which can be used to reach previously inaccessible areas. That particular style has influenced countless future games. Also, the ending changed based on how fast it was completed, which made it very popular with speedrunning. Number 8, Metroid Prime Hunters. Another jewel from another portable console of Nintendo. It's part of the Metroid series and it was released on the Nintendo DS. This game had a strong emphasis on first-person shooter aspect of the series, making it one of the best portable shooters of its time. Its main selling point was that it was created to specifically squeeze the capabilities of the Nintendo DS hardware, like the Wi-Fi and voice chat options. It also introduced the other bounty hunters with unique weapons and alternate forms in its multiplayer. Very few games used all the potential of the DS as well as Metroid Prime Hunters did. Number 7, Metroid Zero Mission. This game could be considered a heresy by many since it's a reboot of the first Metroid. It changed both gameplay and story to fit with the new time. Developed for the Game Boy Advance, the intention was to upgrade the gameplay to the level of Super Metroid. So, how did it end? I'm happy to say the final result was more than expected. It managed to introduce the new elements while respecting the original source. Overall, it was an improvement on every front from the first title. Number 6, Metroid Samus Returns. Nowadays, the word reboot has become something of a dirty word, a sign of decadence of the entertainment industry who chooses safety over innovation. However, not all reboots are bad, and Metroid Samus Returns is proof of that. It's a reboot of the 1991 Game Boy game, Metroid 2: The Return of Samus, for the Nintendo 3DS. It is an improvement on that game, yes, but the key word here is new. The game adds a lot of new features like a melee counterattack, the ability to fire from any angle, and the ability to choose new abilities. Many consider it a masterful return to Metroid's roots. Number 5, Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. Metroid Prime 3 takes everything that made the first two great and polishes it. However, this has proven to be a double-edged sword, and it's the main reason why it didn't get higher on this list. Despite its gorgeous-looking graphics and innovative Wii controls, in many ways it feels like only a polish of the previous titles. Even then, Metroid Prime 3 is still one of the best Wii titles, and one of the best first-person shooters on the Wii, period. Number 4, Metroid Fusion. Metroid Fusion could have easily ended up in a higher place on this list, which speaks volumes for the quality of the Game Boy Advance title. No surprise considering it's designed by the same team that made Super Metroid. It introduced a mission-based gameplay to help the players since the game allows for free exploration and the completion of the missions in whichever order the players wanted. However, the frantic and addictive action is the bread and butter of this title. It's a worthy successor to Super Metroid in every aspect. Number 3, Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. The apple didn't fall far from the tree. The continuation of Metroid Prime followed the steps of its first primer, but improved it in almost every aspect. Echoes differences itself in 3 points from the previous Prime: a multiplayer, more focused in the story, which is a common critique of the previous game, and new gameplay elements. From these, the single one that stood out most was the story. Its single-player experience is considered to be one of the best of the GameCube. Metroid Prime 2 is also famous for its punishing difficulty, but whether this is a positive or negative depends on each gamer. Number 2, Super Metroid. Classics are classics for a reason, and now we go back to the Super Nintendo era where this masterpiece appeared. It's considered one of the greatest games of the Super Nintendo, and among the best side-scrollers ever. The reason why it stood up is because it pushed what is possible with the graphics and the sound for the Super Nintendo. Also, it introduced the element of auto-mapping, which helped to introduce it to a larger audience. The fact that it's available in the Nintendo Store gives you no excuse not to go out and try it. Honorable mentions: Metroid Prime Pinball. No, you have heard it right, a Metroid-themed pinball game for the Nintendo DS. It isn't that hard to imagine taking into account that Samus can transform into a ball. Let me reassure you that it enters this list for a reason. It's better than how it appears. When it comes to gameplay, it follows the basic rules of every other pinball game, but with a few twists, like the ability to shoot and jump over walls. Overall, it's a good integration and a fun game to pass the time. Number 1, Metroid Prime. If you had a GameCube, then you had this game, period. It's considered by many to be the best Metroid game of all time, and one of the greatest games ever. Developed by Retro Studios and Nintendo, this game stood up as the first Metroid game to ever use 3D computer graphics, and it emphasized exploration over combat, but also remaining faithful to the series. The virtues of this game are too many to name, but the one thing that critics agree is there are very few games that had such a masterfully crafted atmosphere as Metroid Prime. From graphics to level design and puzzles, every element of Prime is carefully crafted to transport you to its world and give you an experience you won't forget. Did your favorite Metroid game make it on the list? Let us know down in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.